Hi, Mike Brantley, auctioneer. Discussing today the right to be an auctioneer. Some even characterize it as the constitutional right to be an auctioneer. And I'm not an attorney. I didn't study constitutional law. I'm an auctioneer, but I can read and research. Apparently, some people can't. So let me give you a little preface as to what I know about the Constitution and your rights to be an auctioneer. First of all, let's start with the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence says that you have a right to pursue life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. And the problem with that being in the Declaration of Independence is that's not binding law. It's often quoted, often cited. Well, I have a right to pursue anything that makes me happy. So I suppose if robbing a bank makes you happy, robbing a store, taking out a gun and shooting your neighbor makes you happy, nobody can stop you. See how ludicrous that is? You just have a right to be happy no matter what. But that's not binding law. We have the United States Constitution. And so let me give you, I have it right in front of me here, let me give you some highlights to the Constitution. Article 1, Section 1 talks about Congress and the Senate and the House of Representatives. Section 2, how they're chosen, electors, and how states elect people to Congress. More on legislature, when elections will take place, bills that originate, that raise revenue, tax, essentially. Congress will collect taxes, duties, excises. Regulate money, post offices, roads. Declare war. Maintain military, navies mentioned here, armies. Just looking for stuff that might say you have a right to be an auctioneer. Let's see it there. Okay, we have Article 2. Talks about the president, electors, and how maybe candidates are chosen to run for president. President is the chief commander of the military. I think they mentioned Army and Navy here, militia. There'll be a vice president, civil officers. There'll be Article 3 here, judicial power, courts. You can't be treasonous or flee from justice without ramifications. We could have some new states if we want. Amendments to the Constitution, how that works. I don't see any mention of auctioneer there. I'm gonna, auctioneer there. Oh, we got amendments. It must be in the amendments. Amendment number 1, pretty famous. Right to free speech, press, peaceably assemble, petition the government for redress and grievances. Amendment 2, there's probably not an auctioneer not familiar with the Second Amendment. right to keep and bear arms is often quoted. Amendment 3, you can't be military, can't enter your home. Largely, that's the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable searches and seizure. Fifth Amendment, can't be tried without, in some cases, a grand jury and or due process otherwise. Sixth Amendment, speedy trial, legal counsel, things like that. Seventh Amendment, jury trial in some cases. Eighth Amendment, excessive bail or money to be released from prison. Women had the right to vote. We got U.S. citizens, 26th Amendment, 1971. The U.S. citizens who are now 18 can vote. Previously, it was 21 years old. I'm still looking for that auctioneer part. I don't see it. You know why I don't see it? It's not in there. You do not have a constitutional right to be an auctioneer. You do not have a constitutional right to work or hold yourself out as an auctioneer. You do not. You never did have that right, and you don't have it today. Now, you can think that. That's fine. You can think that. But you don't have it. And you're quoting the Constitution. It's not in there. There are even debates on both sides of the issue of whether or not you have the right to work or you don't have the right to work. Many states, almost all states, license certain occupations. There's an effort underway here in the United States to get rid of some of that occupational licensing. So that's probably a good thing to maybe pare that back a little bit. But what if a state says, well, for you to be a notary, you have to take a test or pay a fee? And you said, well, I want to be a notary and I'm not going to take the test or pay the fee. I have a right to be a notary because, well, I have that right to be happy, right? So I can do anything I want. Can the state say, well, then you're just not going to be a notary? And if you work as a notary, we're going to go to court and get a cease and desist. And if you persist in proclaiming your rights under the Constitution to do whatever you want, we'll fine you or put you in prison. I mean, I don't know what we have to do to make you realize that you don't have that right. In fact, let me just say the two that are discussed probably the most that you can't be denied, infringed is often used in the auctioneering community. Yeah, here they are. Congress cannot make a law establishing a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, abridge the freedom of speech, the press. Can your speech be infringed? Sure it can. Can you go in the classic? Can you go into a theater where it's not on fire and say it's on fire, yell fire in a theater? You can't. Can you be held liable for slanderous, untrue, damaging speech? Speech that you are under order to keep confidential. Can you say it anyway? Oh, I have the freedom of speech. I can say anything I want. And you know what would surprise a lot of auctioneers and even people in Congress? Amendment number 1, the First Amendment, says that Congress shall not make any law abridging your free speech. Can Facebook make rules about what's on Facebook or what's on LinkedIn or what's on YouTube? They sure can, because they're not Congress. You're playing in their backyard now. The Second Amendment, another one that's frequently misunderstood. I have auctioneers tell me, you can't infringe on my right to keep and bear arms because the Constitution guarantees me that right. Really? Then why do you have to be 18 to buy a long gun? Why do you have to be 21 to buy a short gun? Why are there required background checks in many circumstances? If you are convicted of certain crimes, you can't get a firearm. Certain semi-automatic or fully automatic are regulated by the government. They're infringing on your right. You did not know that the government can infringe on your constitutional rights, your so-called constitutional rights? Still looking for that auctioneer part there. If your governor says you're not to be an auctioneer in your state, then you're not to be an auctioneer in your state. Now, it's likely your governor's not going to specifically say you as an auctioneer can't be an auctioneer in your state. Your governor might say businesses that are non-essential are closed, or businesses are essential are open, and you'd have to decide if you're essential or not. And I don't think the spirit of the word essential means it's essential to you, but probably essential to the public good. And not that you couldn't make that argument, but if it's all about you, your essential argument probably fails. Some states license auctioneers, interestingly enough. So you go into a licensed state and say, I want to be an auctioneer. I'm not taking that test. I'm not paying that fee. I have a right, constitutional right. What's that licensing agency going to say? What's that state going to say? You get the license, pass the test, pay the fee, you can be an auctioneer. Don't get the license, don't pay the fee, don't pass the test, you're not going to be an auctioneer. And we're going to get a cease and desist, and we will go to court, and we will fine you, and we will throw you in jail if you disobey that rule. It's happened. It's happened. You don't believe it? What constitution are you looking at? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not in the Constitution. And courts, namely the United States Supreme Court, has ruled here in the last, say, 50 years, 100 years, that they can infringe on any of your rights as long as it's not an undue burden on your rights. For example, you might be familiar with the case Roe v. Wade, the right for a woman to have an abortion. Now, can we infringe on that right? A lot of auctioneers say, you bet we can. But you can't eliminate it because the Supreme Court of the United States says that the woman has a right to an abortion. When a state makes it next to impossible to get an abortion, what does somebody do? They go to the Supreme Court and say that won't stand. That is in violation of your previous ruling named Roe v. Wade. Do you have recourse? Do you have something you can do about all this anger about your constitutional right being violated? Yes, there are attorneys, hire one. There are courts, get into a court. We've had people debate governor orders, executive orders. What's the response to that? Proper response to that? Saying the governor's a terrible person, calling the governor names, camping out in the governor's front yard. So it's probably not the answer. What is the answer? Get an attorney, go to court, go to your state Supreme Court. I think a couple states have already done that. And let your state Supreme Court rule on whether your governor's executive order is valid or not. You don't have a constitutional right to be an auctioneer. You may not have a constitutional right to work, period. Take a look at the United States Constitution. You know what? You're posting on Facebook. Open another window. Go to Google, type in United States Constitution. Print it out. Read it. If you find the word auctioneer, let me know. Mike Brantley, auctioneer. Pleasure to be with you today. Other videos on the same page, others forthcoming. Have a great day and stay safe.